Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There was a concerted effort to undermine India and her interests while whitewashing China's mishandling of COVID, which bordered on torturing its own citizens, some would say. A series of Times Now exposés have now blown the cover of such forces. It has followed a revealing piece by the New York Times yesterday confirming tentacles of paid Chinese propaganda extending right up to India, something that was disclosed earlier in India. But of course, the naysayers said that this was a crackdown on free speech and free media. While the New York Times named news website NewsClick among the paid peddlers of Chinese narrative and highlighted its connection with Neville Roy Singham, widely known as the global distributor of Chinese propaganda, Times Now has gone several steps further and shown you the extent of this relationship. Despite denials by the NewsClick and its top editors, the series of email evidence accessed and flashed by Times Now's investigative team show his link to Chinese propaganda and propagandists that needs probing and answering. It appears that the so-called custodians of free speech and free press were busy amplifying China's voice under the garb of free speech and the freedom of the press. These emails, shown by Times Now, trigger questions if the so-called independent media that claims to speak for democracy was actually busy promoting Beijing and berating Bharat. The first email proof put out by Times Now, which has triggered the question if NewsClick and its editor-in-chief, Prabir Purkayastha, were acting like the mouthpiece of China while discussing Arunachal Pradesh's borders with Neville Singham. In fact, they were even talking about how there can be two different maps and how India's area of Arunachal Pradesh can actually be shown in the Chinese context and more towards China. The second email evidence proof that shows that China was facing flack for the spread of the deadly coronavirus pandemic and its mishandling, but NewsClick's editor-in-chief was busy looking for ways to praise China's handling of COVID situation and in fact was part of a big network that would spread this propaganda on how well China was handling everything. And Prabir Purkayastha was on all of those mailing lists. In fact, part of the huge network that the Chinese wanted to spread a narrative that suited them. A third email established that even the left leaders were subscribers to Neville Singham's thoughts and propaganda. The tone and tenor of the email exchange between Neville Singham and Prakash Karat in January 2021 suggests that 6 months after the Chinese Galwan provocation, the CPM was more worried about anti-China sentiments across India than about the martyrdom of our own soldiers at the hands of Chinese soldiers. And that is the most shocking part of this. Karat's email demonstrates his empathy for China despite the loss of 20 brave Indian soldiers in the Galwan clashes. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we show you the fourth and the final proof. The proof that has been outed by Times Now, and it shows editor-in-chief of NewsClick was part of the team asked to promote the Chinese film The Secret of China. The movie was produced by none other than the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda wing. Direct connection with the Chinese Communist Party of NewsClick being given about how this propaganda film produced by the Chinese Communist Party could be part of a narrative, could be dubbed in English, could be subtitled in English and spread across the world and directly through NewsClick, leaving no doubt about the purpose. Is this free media? Is this the media that was being supported by an ecosystem of political parties and people who carry out a narrative talking about democracy and press freedom being in danger in India were actually part of the propaganda machinery of the Chinese Communist Party and called themselves free, independent media? Ladies and gentlemen, the China-funded media empire today stands exposed despite their denials, and the taint has also spread to the ecosystem that amplifies the narrative which frequently borders on India bashing. The political arm of the alleged ecosystem was under attack in Parliament today, with the BJP asserting the opposition follows China's cue to undermine their own country. Listen in to Union Minister Piyush Goyal, also the leader of the House, leading the charge in Rajya Sabha.
कांग्रेस और इनके सब ये घमंडिया जो गठबंधन है, ये घमंडिया गठबंधन सभी चाइनीज मीडिया को सपोर्ट करके भारत के खिलाफ षड्यंत्र कर रहे हैं। ये बड़ा गंभीर मामला है, इसके ऊपर सदन में चर्चा होनी चाहिए। ये सभी घमंडिया गठबंधन एक दूसरे को मदद करते हैं, ये लोग पैसा फंडिंग करते हैं और उस फंडिंग के माध्यम से भारत विरोधी ताकतें भारत के खिलाफ प्रोपेगेंडा करती है। और क्या रिश्ता है राहुल गांधी का, क्या रिश्ता है राहुल गांधी का कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ चाइना के साथ, क्या है वो साइन किया, ये सब तथ्य सामने आने चाहिए। देश को पता चलना चाहिए कि इनकी क्या मंशा है, ये भारत के साथ खड़े या चाइना के साथ खड़े। देश को पता चलना चाहिए कि इनके नेताओं की क्या प्रतिबद्धता है भारत के प्रति।
कांग्रेस का हाथ न्यूज़ क्लिक के साथ, कम्युनिस्ट बाकी दल ये भी उनका सहयोग करते रहे, लेकिन कांग्रेस का हाथ न्यूज़ क्लिक के साथ, न्यूज़ क्लिक के ऊपर चाइना का हाथ। तो किसका हाथ कहाँ कहाँ मिला है सबको समझ आता है। और राहुल गांधी जी को आज एक अवसर है देश से माफ़ी मांगने का। राहुल गांधी जी सदन में देश से माफ़ी मांगिए और बताइए कि राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन में कैसे चाइना वालों से पैसा लिया और कहां कहां इस्तेमाल किया।
Faced with multiple rounds of attacks from the BJP's benches, the opposition today alleged that Union Minister Piyush Goyal had called them traitors, a charge denied by the Union Minister himself. Soon, fuming members of Parliament from the INDIA alliance staged a walkout, and they also moved a privilege motion against the Union Minister. Listen in to the opposition's charge.
लीडर ऑफ द हाउस पीयूष गोयल ने एक अत्यंत असम्मानजनक और मैं कहूँगा उस पार्टी के लिए सबसे बड़ी गाली होगी जिसने दो प्रधानमंत्री कुर्बान किए देश से आतंकवाद से लड़ते, जिसके नेतृत्व में देश को आज़ादी मिली, उसको वो पार्टी जिसके मुखिया, जिसका संगठन जो उस समय था, अंग्रेजों की फौज में भर्ती होने का भारतवासियों को ऐलान करना। जब गांधी जी ने कहा कि अंग्रेजों भारत छोड़ो, उस समय उनके साथ था।
So the legitimate question that we are asking on the NewsHour tonight are those who peddled Chinese propaganda free speech forces or are they sellouts? That's the question and that's the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the NewsHour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining me on the debate tonight, GVL Narasimha Rao, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson of the BJP, Suhail Seth, columnist, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at the IPCS, Ghanshyam Tiwari, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Advocate Sayan Banerjee, Spokesperson of the CPIM, joining me live from Kolkata. But my first question goes to Tehseen Poonawala. Tehseen Poonawala, how much proof is enough proof to give to the Congress party that went out and defended raids and investigation into NewsClick, calling it an attack on free press and free media? I want to ask you, it is the Chinese political Communist Party of China's propaganda department which was directly in touch with NewsClick. They're part of the email list and they say that what else can you do to propagate this film and spread the Chinese propaganda? Directly Chinese propaganda through the propaganda department of the Communist Party of China. What bigger proof do you need, Tehseen Poonawalla? And today, I want to ask you this. Should the Congress Party apologize to this country for calling such people and such outlets as outlets that support free and independent media?
Namaskar, ma'am. Thank you for having me on the show. At the onset, I find it ironical and laughable, perhaps even ticklish and funny, that the BJP sitting in the panel today here and in the country finds New York Times kosher and finds New York Times absolutely above board. The same New York Times that day in and day out, from the respected Honorable Anurag Thakur to my dear friend GVLG abuse. Very good. Today you find it kosher? Chalo, achhi baat hai. Sudhar gaye. Now let's come to the larger point. Who's defending NewsClick's? I still think this government is against freedom of click. You have evidence, you should prosecute them. Where you started in 2021, you've attained zero. You're depending on a NewsClick article to prosecute them. I am going to make a proposal today in front of the people of India. I think very firmly, I think extremely firmly, if there's something wrong, everything that NewsClick does should be in public domain in times now. Is the BJP ready to put all the funding that Raju Sabnani got in public domain? I am saying Rahul Gandhi, the MOU that the Congress party signed should be in public domain. Are you ready to say why BJP MPs were training in Chinese schools? Put it out in public domain. I am saying very, very categorically that every single investigation into opposition links with China should be had. Are you ready to answer why is the trade deficit today with China $100 billion when it's $30 billion? Why are you paying Russia in Chinese currency? Chinese currency.
What about tree? What about tree? What about tree will not get you anywhere, Tehseen Poonawalla.
Paying Russia in Chinese currency.
You debate Indo-China. 1 minute, Tehseen Poonawalla. Debate Indo-China relations.
Do you think we should pay Russia in an enemy country's currency?
I'm only asking you one question. Today, will you still call NewsClick a free, independent media outlet? Will you say that yes or no? Simple yes or no answer.
I don't care about NewsClick, RSS, or my Indian government that pays.
You cared a lot.
Investigate them.
You cared a lot when Randeep Singh Surjewala came out and supported it. When Supriya Srinath came and supported it. When Rahul Gandhi supported it. How come you don't care today? Abhijit Iyer Mitra, double speak here. They cared a lot when they called it an attack on free media. Today they don't care at all. I mean, the entire Congress party is up and about calling everybody Godi media, but calling NewsClick free and independent media when NewsClick has direct links proven in that email to the propaganda department of the Communist Party of China. What is the bigger proof that you need, Abhijit Iyer Mitra? But today, whataboutery is the only answer they have.
But Navika, what do you expect from them? See, I know you to be a very warm and forgiving person. So, you should find it in your heart to forgive Mr. Prabir Purkayastha. Because anybody that knows him knows that he's not all, okay up there. He's a very naive, sort of a clueless kind of a gentleman who's very easy to manipulate by anyone and everyone. Nobody who met Prabir Purkayastha ever commented on his intelligence or his wit or his state of mind. But, that aside, I just want to correct one thing out here. The outrage isn't based on New York Times. The ED had actually come up with this report on the 19th of last month. Okay, it's the ED report. If you will give me 2 minutes, I just want to read out. The source of fund of rupees 38.04 crores received by PKK NewsClick Studio Private Limited, of FDI of 9.59 crores, as well as export proceeds of 28.45 crores. Investigation revealed that she is not proved. Investigation has revealed that Shri Neville Roy Singham, a close associate of Shri Prabir Purkayastha and a frontman for CPC China, is the real owner of the fund of 38.04 crores. I'm fast forwarding a bit. The digital evidence has proved that Shri Kabir Purkayastha and his associate journalist are working on various projects of CPC China. I'm not going to take the names of the disbursement of things, except that Mr. Prabir Purkayastha, and this should be a notification of the gentleman's intelligence. Shri Prabir Purkayastha has siphoned out the fund of rupees 1.55 crore from the company on the name of his electrician, Shri Joseph Raj. This is a man who thinks when the ED has been expanded to 14-15 fold, he can fool the system of 1.55 crores by billing it to his electrician, Mr. Joseph Raj. This is not a smart guy. But this is symptomatic of the Congress. I do not accuse the Congress or anybody in the Congress of being anti-national or anything like that. I accuse them of something far worse, compound stupidity. To trust a man like Prabir Purkayastha to run your stories for you, to grant him access, for several Congress leaders to be retweeting the kind of drivel that he was retweeting. It is the sign of the Congress that they take on liabilities, they do not take on assets. There was one very important thing that you missed out. There was one more name out there. It wasn't just Prakash Karat's emails. It was also money dispersed to one Mr. Vijay Prashad, who is Brinda Karat's nephew. And he has been a recipient of funds, and he is part of this mail trail, apparently, doing a significant amount of this Chinese propaganda. He is also hailed in Indian circles as a major intellectual, and clearly he knew because he works at something called a Tricontinental Institute, which is based out of China. So he could have not known what was happening out there sitting down in China. I think this is... there are layers here. I think
well said. Exposing these, there are many layers that you point out. There are many layers that have been pointed out by Abhijit. Taking this for, what's your line? You haven't said a word about whether you call NewsClick. No. Is NewsClick independent media? Yes or no? That's the only one word I'll allow you.
I accept Times Now. I watch nothing or read nothing. But here's the point. Abhijit is absolutely right. And I only watch Navika's too. But here's the point. Abhijit is everything. I have to survive. Abhijit is absolutely right.
No wonder you haven't got a ticket from the Congress party to fight an election.
But Abhijit is absolutely right on everything. Sorry. Abhijit is absolutely right on everything he said, except who's going to act? The BJP and the ED has to act. Now, they have not arrested anybody. If somebody is removing 1 crore on their electrician's name, you've still not arrested the guy. You're waiting for a New York Times report to come in Parliament and shout, look what we have in our hand. I think you are being absolutely ridiculous. You ED at the drop of the hat can arrest people. They put them behind bars. In ED or guilty until proven innocent. Why haven't they arrested? Why haven't done this? Because the BJP is also benefiting from this propaganda. Otherwise, the BJP should stop acting like it has a spine of a molten eclair and act. What is Tehseen, Suhail Seth or Abhijit going to do? We'll complain or defend. Who's supposed to act? The most powerful man in the universe, the Home Minister. Ask him to act.
Well, so GVL Narasimha Rao, are you dependent on the New York Times to prove a case against NewsClick? Is the question Tehseen Poonawalla is asking, because that's exactly the point that is being stated by NewsClick itself. They say over the past 12 hours, various false and misleading allegations have been leveled against NewsClick which pertain to matters that are currently sub judice before courts in India. We respect the sanctity of the legal process and do not intend to indulge in a media trial. So, GVL Narasimha Rao, are you going to do a media trial based on what the New York Times has said?
Navika, good evening to you, all the panelists and the viewers. Government of India did not act. The Enforcement Directorate did not carry out its investigations based on newspaper reports, and not the least the New York Times. In fact, they have already prepared a report, some contents of which you have Abhijit reading out a while ago. So there has been a very detailed investigation that has gone into, and a lot of skeletons have come out. But today, when we are holding the New York Times to you, because you see this as important as gospel truth. It is the Congress party, the communists, and the likes of Tehseen who will consider it as a golden word. So today, when the whole world is talking about, is in a way saying what we have found more than a year ago, what does Congress party have to say? And this is not the first time that Congress party is seen on the side of China. What happened? Why did the Congress party have an agreement, have an MOU? Why did they receive money in the accounts of Rajiv Gandhi Foundation? Why, when at the time of Doklam standoff, what was the reason for Rahul Gandhi to have secret parleys with the Chinese ambassador? It is not just one instance. At every stage, and even during his visit to the Cambridge University a few months ago, Rahul Gandhi was all praise for China, and he wanted Indian democracy to be reformed by some foreigners. I think Rahul Gandhi and Congress party's behavior and your past clearly shows that you have sided with China for some reason. Obviously, it has to be a sinister design. And Rahul Gandhi and Congress party must open up as to what are the compelling reasons to accept money from China, what are the reasons to defend agencies which are indulging in Chinese propaganda, what was the reason for him to have secret discussions with Chinese ambassador, what was the reason for them to go and sing praises of China abroad and derail India. So obviously all this has some kind of a coherence. This is part of a Congress party's design, which is what Piyush Goyal referred to in the House. And obviously those comments have clearly stirred the hornet's nest. They have clearly created a lot of...
And all Tehseen Poonawalla is doing today is running away from these questions that have been chasing the Congress party. When you come out and defend the NewsClick, the question is, what proof did you have then that you were asking for proof against NewsClick today, and whether this proof is enough, why don't you take action against them? आपके पास क्या proof था जब आप कह रहे थे, oh, this is an attack on free media? And that is the question I want to ask Mr. Sayan Banerjee. Mr. Sayan Banerjee, isn't it shocking that somebody as senior as Mr. Prakash Karat writes mails to Mr. Neville Singham, and what is he saying? That he's very worried about the anti-China propaganda that is being created in India by the Indian media. This is 6 months after Galwan. And he says that there is a hue and cry in India which is anti-China. And he says about some border issues. 20 soldiers martyred. And it's just some border issues that India is having with China, Mr. Banerjee?
No, exactly. But I really don't know from where you all get all these emails. I really don't know. Number one. Number two, yes, we have witnessed our Prime Minister probably went to Pakistan to have biryani with Nawaz Sharif for his daughter's ceremony. We never went to Pakistan. We never went to Sabarmati's riverbank and to Jhola with the President of China. Now, the fact is, why our Union Minister is so in love with New York Times? Is it the same America who sent their 7th fleet to the Bay of Bengal in the year 1971? We are not the sympathizer for China. We are not sympathizer for Pakistan. But what is the reason that our Union Minister, Sri Anurag Thakur, is so much relied on a document which is published by the New York Times? That is the basic question. If you have any evidence regarding that, if you have any evidence that clash with the law, take actions in this regard. Who stops you from doing that? No one. It is the BJP who want to build a narrative. That's all.
Evidence is being put out on the screen. What do you want to say? Mr. Karat has not denied the fact that he ever wrote that email. So what more evidence? My question is, when a question is asked of the CPM on China, they respond about Pakistan. Suhail said, now is that not called ducking the question, and completely give away because they don't have anything to say? Sayan Banerjee, just a minute.
Union Minister,
see, let's go step by step. Shayan is right.
Not a junior minister.
The CPIM, or for that matter, any political party, can have any association with any country they deem fit. The point that you made, Navika, holds value because you do it at a time when our brave hearts have been martyred. That's a very serious issue, but the Communist Party has had links and very strong links with China and Cuba. I remember in the good old days when we were growing up in Bengal, Jyoti Babu would go for medical treatment to Cuba or to China. So I have no issues with that. I have 2 or 3 issues which I want to take up, drawn from even what Abhijit said. There is a clear violation of the sanctity of the media in India when the media in India chooses to be funded by an organized... 1 minute, Sharon, did I interrupt you? Let's be civil. বাংলা ভালো করে আমরা এই ডিবেটটা করব, ঠিক আছে? এখানে এই পাড়া মস্তানি আমরা করব না. So, to come back to the point, you know, these people always interrupt the young today. So I just want to go back to what Abhijit said. If the Enforcement Directorate had not launched an investigation, the substantive details of the New York Times article would not have appeared. A. B. So much for the free press. We in India are far too kind. I'll tell you why. The White House today has revoked the passes of 400 journalists in the United States. 400. This is the citadel of the so-called freedom of the press. Why? They've enumerated the reasons. The third to my mind is the agenda that was being propagated was clearly an agenda that did not have the interests of India at heart. You call it anti-national, anti-India, that's up to you to use sobriquets. My limited point is the Enforcement Directorate, who most people have abused, ad nauseum, did the investigation. Abhijit Iyer Mitra has read out the proof. So it's very clear that there was a transgression of the worst kind, that money was used in order to create a level of influence. That level of influence then created a narrative which was false and which hurt the sentiments of the government, perhaps, and obviously of India at large. Now to equate that with something else, to my mind, is not just whataboutery. It is, as you rightly used the word ducking, but I would use the word deflection. Tehseen said that he doesn't care about NewsClick. Fair enough. But what you need to be worried about is if our systems and our media, which I have a lot of respect for, is as porous that it can be influenced by foreign funding, which has a clear agenda to destroy the sanctity of our nation, then you and I as Indians, forget which dispensation you belong to, you and I as Indians need to worry. Because if China has done this now, the Enforcement Directorate has been brilliant in finding it out. We don't know when it was done in the past and how it may be done in the future. So we need to ring fence ourselves, Tehseen, and even you will appreciate that. My final point is that Khushro Irani, the person who was at one time the managing director of the Statesman in Calcutta, said, the press in India is as free as it chooses to be. The press has every right to write about China. It has every right to write what it feels. But where there is funding, where you've taken money, it's cash for opinion. That is worrisome. An opinion per se is not a worry at all. But cash for opinions is worrisome because this agenda, Navika, and I'm saying this on your program, I said this earlier, if you remember, when the ED was being abused during Partha Chatterjee's time, saying they're not a caterer, they're an agency. My worry is as we run up to the Lok Sabha 2024 elections, there will be more narratives that will be virulent, that will be driven by lucre, by cash, and that will destroy the unified sanctity of our nation.
And that is where the worry comes in. And that is where the worry, Suhail said, you've hit the nail on the head. And I want to ask Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari the same question. Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, everybody is free to like whichever media outlet they want to follow. Absolutely free country. You want to choose NewsClick? Fair point. You are most happy to do it. You want to follow Times Now? You are most welcome to do it. You can have your likes and you can have your dislikes. The question only comes in if somebody is taking money, and in this case, from a foreign country which is inimical to India at the moment when this conversation is happening, and propaganda is being fed by these media outlets, which is pro a country which is against us and not our country itself, which is where the danger comes in. You can be pro-China, but you can't have a narrative which is pro-China and anti-India and then begin to call yourself free media. And that is where my question to all political parties who just jump in to defend, just because they have to attack the Modi Sarkar, they jump in to defend those people about whom sometimes they may just not know anything. Is this an innocent support that was given, or Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, do political parties need to grow up and not take such positions without proof that they've seen? Because this proof today raises serious concern.
Good evening, Navika ji, to you, the viewers, and the fellow co-panelists. I think the question in India for the last 9 years has been, what is the position that media is taking vis-a-vis opposition parties, and how much they are questioning the government versus the opposition parties. But that's a debate for another day. As far as BJP and China goes, here's a headline from Economic Times, Jan 22, 2011. China to enhance cooperation in BJP-ruled states, where Wang Jiarui, Chinese Minister for International Department, said that Nitin Gadkari as BJP president proposed some kind of cooperation, party-to-party cooperation between BJP and China. And he went on to say the Chinese minister wished the BJP leader great success in next general elections, and said both BJP and CPC must do something tangible to promote party-to-party contact at different levels. In the last 9 years, tell me 1 year where BJP has not sent its ministers or RSS leaders to China. Even when the Doklam crisis began, BJP leaders and ministers were in China. Forget that. The Prime Minister himself spoke, the greatest friend and philosopher and guide to Xi Jinping. My friendship with Xi Jinping is +1. Again, Economic Times, May 16 to 2015, where he says that how Xi Jinping and he are related at a village level. Xi Jinping knows about his village and he knows about Prime Minister's village, and they keep inviting each other. They have met 20 times. They have, in just current year, given $100 billion of business to China. From Paytm to X number of companies, it is this government that opened the floodgates for China to reach every individual. Forget a NewsClick. Today, everything that is on your mobile is in some way giving business to China, and it is aided by this government. Can Mr. Jivel Narasimha Rao say that in last nine years, not a single company linked to China has given donations to BJP or electoral bonds to BJP? Can he say that Mr. Adani's establishment does not have Chinese investors? Can he say that those establishments are not linked to defense deals? BJP is the greatest friend of China.
Again, what about
that they today are
please answer the questions being asked today.
You are an esteemed member of parliament. I did not interrupt you.
Many questions coming in. Many questions coming.
Point is,
yes, Ghanshyam. Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, you've raised some very important questions and 3 hands going up. Yes, Suhail said first, then I'm coming to you, Abhijit.
I want to say one very quick thing. I have a lot of time and a lot of respect for Ghanshyam. I truly do. He's a man of integrity. There's only one probable error Ghanshyam has made in his analysis. When the Prime Minister or Dr. Jaishankar or Minister X and Y reach out to China, it's within the purview of the diplomacy compulsions that two nations have to honor. Narendra Modi is not taking money to reach out to China or vice versa. A. B. The opinion has not been clouded, Ghanshyam, by interests other than the national interest. The interest here was money. So the argument that you hold that India and China are close, perhaps, and there was a need to come closer, but China betrayed us. And after that, we've moved back. But the point I'm making, Ghanshyam, is you cannot equate the two, because one is government to government. The other is where a government is controlling the narrative of our country, where we believe that that particular press outlet or outlets are actually free and fair and doing it in the interest of freedom of the press. That's my worry.
1 point rebuttal. 1 point rebuttal. When Nitin Gadkari, as president of BJP in 2011, was making party-to-party dialogue with China, and the Chinese minister was saying that we will have party-to-party dialogue at all levels. Was it government? It was UPA government in power. If Dr. Manmohan Singh did not have the grace that he has, and if he had played cheap politics that this government plays, then he would have painted the entire BJP as anti-national.
No. So
my point remains
that Mr. Nitin, you know, it was Ghanshyam Tiwari. There is a very simple explanation for this. Very simple explanation. In 2008. Dr. Manmohan Singh and Rahul Gandhi also signed an MOU, and that was a different time in a different context. I will get GVL to respond, but Abhijit, Abhijit has been wanting to make a point on what you said. So Abhijit, go on.
So, Suhail made the point I needed to, but I needed to rebut our friend from the CPIM. Do you know what this is, Navika?
CPM Puducherry?
No, it's actually a CPM poster from the 70s in Bengal, which says China's chairman is our chairman. So for all the denials, this is an actual CPIM poster. Last year, I'm not even going back that long, 2 years in a row. Last year, a Kerala minister, CPIM, sorry, not minister, Politburo member, Ramachandra Pillai, said India's campaign against China is an attack on the CPIM. Now, who is more senior, Shayan or Mr. Ramachandra Pillai, who is a Politburo member? Why is the CPIM shilling for China?
Absolutely
and the CPIM
wrong.
during Galwan.
And not just that. Let me show this. Let me show this tweet also. Let me show this tweet also.
Never.
This is the tweet is from CPIM Puducherry, where they are saying today marks the 127th birth anniversary of great helmsman Mao Zedong, who fought Chinese fascists and helped defeat global fascism, and a great symbol of revolution in China. Mao left us a legacy of anti-imperialist struggle with the working class. Red salute. I mean, the fact that the CPIM is completely under the spell of China is not new.
You too, Navika ji.
Just one point. I want to
it's very important.
To you too. Can I respond now?
Can I finish?
Can I respond now?
Can I finish first? Thank you. You see, we should be
I'm
very
coming
clear.
to you.
We can't keep saying,
yeah.
We can't keep saying China, China, China. We have to say the Chinese Communist Party, because remember, the biggest victims, like Germans were the biggest victims of the Nazi Party, the biggest victims of the Chinese Communist Party have been the Chinese. The Chinese Communist Party has killed 7 times the number of Chinese than the Imperial Japanese Army ever did. This is what communists do wherever they go. Stalin killed more Russians than the German army ever did. This is what
we are supposed to do.
They are traitors.
What we are supposed
in every
to
country.
do.
Well,
yeah, of course you want to kill off Indians. That's what you did in Russia and China.
Stop in 2021 calling the martyrdom of our soldiers as a border dispute. That is, for starters, what Mr. Prakash Karat could do. But Tehseen Poonawalla, 30 seconds, Tehseen Poonawalla.
Yeah. Just 30 seconds. Abhijit is right. The Communist Party of India are absolute terror. And here is 26 June 2016, the most honorable Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and I quote him. Here's the tweet for your viewers to see. The Communist Party of China and BJP are similar. There is tremendous similarities between the two parties. Cooperation must enhance. This is Shivraj Singh Chauhan, 2016, when Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji was Prime Minister.
GVL Narasimha Rao from NewsClick. From NewsClick, it is the entire debate is being obfuscated to the BJP's track record. Please respond.
Yeah, Navika, I think when Prime Minister and Foreign Ministers engage with China, because China, we have diplomatic relations with China. We haven't ended our relations. So there will always be opportunities to discuss, meet, enhance cooperation in several sectors. What is the big deal about it? Number one. Number two, BJP hasn't taken money from Communist Party of China. Congress Party did. They have taken their foundation, Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, which is chaired by Sonia Gandhi, who was the president of All India, president of the Congress Party. She took money. And what does Congress Party have to say about it? 2008 MOU, why has this not been put in public domain? If our chief ministers, our national presidents talked about cooperation, this was done openly, transparently. But what is the Congress Party got to hide about 2008 MOU? Then why did Rahul Gandhi have to secretly meet Indian Chinese ambassador to India? Why was the Congress Communications Department why did they lie to the country?
Well, the question
tonight
is only this.
Chinese ambassador. You have this This tells you about the bogus.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those are the questions that are being asked today. The question tonight, and nobody, let me just put this on record. Nobody is wanting to believe news. 1 minute, New York Times today over anything else. The point is that when it comes in the New York Times, the only expectation is that those who believe the New York Times almost as if it were their Bible today will understand that what was being said in 2021 by the Enforcement Directorate is what is being said by New York Times today. You never believed the Enforcement Directorate then. You never believed the Modi Sarkar then in 2021. Is it time for those who called NewsClick and the raids on NewsClick as an attack on free media today look at how free and how independent this media was? That is the only question. Can narratives in India be drawn and be pushed by those who are inimical to our country by so-called media within the country that play to a Chinese tune? Isn't that a valid question to ask? Well, when we say anything about the Indian government, the Indian Prime Minister, many come out and call us Godi media. What would you say to those media outlets who actually work for money and propaganda of the Chinese Communist Party? That's the only question. And that's where we leave the question. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on debate number 1.